Welcome again to Zombie Tactics, joined today by my special guest star, Mr. Springfield XD40. You know, if you watch very many movies, action-adventure movies in particular, it won't be long before you see the famous Gangsta shooting position, where the gun is held out straight and on its side like this. Well, you know what? Bad ideas don't die easily. And it's been said before that a lie will get twice around the world before the truth even has a chance to put its pants on in the morning. Never is it more true with this crazy handgun shooting position that people seem to be in love with for some reason. I don't know, maybe it's just that you see it often enough in movies and it kind of looks cool when Antonio Banderas is doing it. You just can't get it out of your mind. But this is an inherently bad shooting position. And I'm going to talk to you about why it's the case and what some people have offered as their reasoning as to why they recommend it as some super advanced technique or a point shooting technique or something like that. Well, right off the bat, people that are adherents of this approach will say, well, this is a very natural shooting position, because if you go out in a playground and you watch kids point at something, they'll go, ooh, look at that, a balloon. And there's some truth to that. You go out on a playground and you watch kids pointing at something, and they tend to do this because this is a natural way to point your finger when you don't have anything in it. You'll notice that we don't have many hand tools designed to operate this way with our hand in this position. When we're holding an axe, we hold it like this, and we tend to chop from this angle, not so much from this angle, and there's a reason for that. Take out an axe, chop from this angle, and then chop from this angle, and you'll notice an immediate difference in the way that the two positions feel. So just because pointing in a certain way is natural does not necessarily mean that using a tool in that manner is the right way to do it. That's especially true with a handgun, because a handgun is designed to be operated with the handgun in this position for a number of reasons. Now, if you don't believe me, the first thing you can do is you can take any modern handgun, and I'm doing this in a very lightweight condition. There are no rounds in the chamber, if you can see that, I don't know, and there's no mag in the mag well, so this is the lightest that this Springfield XD40 is ever going to be. If I take that and I point it out one-handed, I'll find that it is difficult to control the weapon so far as getting a decent sight picture, and once I maintain a sight picture, well, it's very difficult to maintain that sight picture. I've actually got my front sight wobbling around all over the place here because this is an inherently bad position to hold any kind of an object that has any kind of weight on it. That's going to be even more the case once I stick a full magazine of 10 rounds here in California, or the standard capacity magazines of 15 in this handgun of 40 caliber 165 or 185 grain cartridges. All of a sudden it's a lot heavier now, and that makes the proposition even worse. Now, this is a polymer handgun, meaning the frame is made out of polymer. If this were a 1911 or an all-metal framed pistol, there's even more weight hanging out on the end of my arm. If you think that's a stable position, just take a 5-6 pound weight and hold it out like this for a little bit and see how that goes. Or take your handgun, that's going to weigh less than 5 or 6 pounds, and see how much strain that places on your wrist, as opposed to holding it out at this angle. Now, when you hold it out in the standard position, whether it's supported by another hand or not, you'll find that you're able to more quickly acquire a sight picture, and you're able to maintain that sight picture much more easily, and the gun is going to wobble around quite a bit less. So right off the bat, we're saying that just because this is a good way to point doesn't mean that it's the right way to hold an object out that has any kind of weight on it. Fundamentally, this is an unstable position to hold a handgun, or just about any tool for that matter, which is why you don't find tools designed to be gripped like that. That's not all, though. In a handgun operation, simpler is better. and the fewer steps you have to go through to present a firearm or to employ it to defend yourself against zombies or bad guys or whatever, the better. If I holster up here and I take a step back, you'll notice that in a standard handgun presentation, doing this very slowly, lifting the gun out, dropping the elbow, meeting with my grip and pushing forward, that's fewer steps by quite a few than a much more complicated motion using much finer motor skills of simultaneously dropping the arm, rotating, and coming out to what we've already determined is an unstable position. If you don't think so, I'd like you to just try for yourself a standard presentation, pushing that gun out and getting to a sight picture, and then do the same thing again, pushing out and trying to get to a single-handed or double-handed grip of any kind and getting any kind of a sight picture. You're going to be all over the place. It doesn't work. This is not a good firing position, despite the fact that somebody comes along, it seems every couple of years, and rediscovers it as some kind of uber tactical, wonderful technique. Now, in addition to that, the mechanics of the way a handgun operates dictate that as I'm holding the gun out like this, and I've got a good master grip, or even a good grip that is single-handed, the tendency will be for the recoil of the gun to cause the gun to move in this direction. Okay? That works because if I take the gun and I point it, it looks like I'm pointing it at you, but I'm seeing myself on the camera as I'm doing this. If the gun rotates a little down or a little up, I'm still aiming at a relatively thin, tall target, which means that hits can occur all along here, all along here. I've got very little movement going this way and a little bit of movement going that way if I'm handling the gun correctly. If I'm out here in gangster position and I'm unstable to begin with, look at that. I can't even hold it straight right now. You know, and I'm not weak. It just, you know, what happens to the natural recoil action of the gun? It goes into this plane here. And now instead of aiming at a tallish, thin target and having my rounds potentially go somewhere within that range if I'm being inaccurate because of the recoil, now that recoil goes this direction and it goes this direction, and either initial shots or follow-on shots can hit all around me, can miss me completely, can hit innocent bystanders. They're much less likely to be on target, and that's another reason why this is not a valid shooting position, not for anybody that cares to operate the gun as designed anyway. Now, in addition to that, biomechanically, this does not work. Again, holding any object having any kind of weight. Biomechanically, it doesn't work because of the way the radius and the ulna operate in conjunction with your wrist and the rest of your forearm and your upper arm. I'm going to put a link in the notes for this video, and I may even put the little link right here in the video for you to go and review right now. If I do that, go and review that right now and then come back. What you're going to see is an animation of how the bones in your fingers and your forearm work together. Now, just the way your arm is put together, your radius and your ulna are the most stable when your hand is out in this position. Now, there's some other reasons why you wouldn't want to hold a handgun this way. That's kind of retarded. But they're very stable in this position. As you rotate the hand this way, both your forearm and your upper arm rotate as well, and it keeps the arm, the radius and the ulna, primarily, your forearm bones, in a very stable position and very well designed to absorb the kind of recoil that you would get with a handgun in this position, which is why this is a good grip, why this is a grip that would be recommended by certain schools, many schools, and most of them for that matter, or some variation of it. I'm not trying to be very careful about my grip right now, but some variation of that. Very stable for controlling the recoil of the gun because of the way that the radius and the ulna are in very stable positions well designed to bear weight. Again, just holding the gun out here like this, much less stressful than trying to do this. Very uncomfortable. Your muscles fatigue very quickly because it's just not designed to work that way, bearing any weight. Okay. When you take your wrist and you rotate it, the bones, the radius and the ulna, cross over each other in a way that is much less stable and not as strong. And this is why that position is inherently unstable. Again, take a look at that animation if you haven't taken a look at it already. The radius and the ulna form a cross shape, which is not nearly as stable as the straight position that is formed when your arm is in this position or in this position. See, this is a firing position, this is a firing position, this is a firing position, this is not a firing position, this is not a firing position, this is not a firing position, because it is inherently weak. And it doesn't matter if you're this way, or this way, or this way, or doing some movie stunt where you're gonna, some kind of crazy thing like that. Inherently unstable to hold the gun that way. Sorry if I'm being a little bit wordy, but I'm trying to put this issue to bed, and people will say the silliest things to try to promote this as a valid technique. So being that we can both feel that this is a weak position, and we can demonstrate that biomechanically it's a weak position, why do people continue to recommend this? Again, I think it's just because they see movies or they have some idea that they've come upon the secret knowledge that all of these experts over the decades haven't had available to them, and they're now going to be the uber super tactical guru and reveal to you, the secret techniques of the gods. A little silly, isn't it? Well, something has come up though, because recently I got a PM from somebody that said this: hey, I understand you're an adherent, or you're studying center axis relock technique. And I am. I'm studying that as much as I can, just from online sources and videos and things like that. I do plan on doing an IDP systems training sometime in the future and get the real training. But as much as I'm able to, I'm checking out the center axis relock technique, and I'm finding that there's a lot of validity to this technique, and it makes sense biomechanically. But the purpose of that PM was to say, hey, Steve over at Safe Arms Review was showing off center axis relock, and I noticed that he was holding the gun sideways. I've always been told that that's a bad way to hold the gun. You don't hold the gun sideways. What's up with that? Is center axis relock a bad technique, or is there something else going on there? And as it turns out, there is something else going on there, and I want to demonstrate this for you so that if you are looking into center axis relock technique, you don't get the idea that it is somehow a gangster shooting position and either confuse the two and think that C.A.R, center axis relock, is an invalid technique, or to say that, well, since C.A.R works, it must mean the gangster position is good, right? And here's why. Watch what happens when I take the gun and I move it this way. You'll notice that my wrist changes, and as you can see from the animation that we looked at before, those bones cross and put this in weak position. You're going to see the gun probably even wobbling while I'm holding it here, or trying to hold it here, because it is inherently weak. Again, I'm sorry to keep harping on that, but it's true. Well, what's the difference between that and center axis relock? Because center axis relock, boom, you're right up there. It's sideways. Sometimes you're really sideways. Here's what's the difference. When I take my arm and I do this, those bones are now crossed, because what I did is I just rotated my wrist. In center axis relock, in this position, I'm not rotating those forearm muscles or rotating my wrist. Here's why. The initial position of center axis relock is very close to the body, like this. As I bring the gun up, I'm not rotating my wrist. I am just lifting, hi there, I'm just lifting my elbow. And the position, the relationship of the radius and the ulna in my forearm to the rest of my arm and my wrist is the same. It is that same stable position from which I can fire. So I'm still able to absorb recoil. I'm still able to get a good sight picture. I'm still able to maintain that sight picture. And believe it or not, this is a very, very comfortable position to shoot from. C.A.R works for that reason. It's not, I'm not doing this and then bringing the gun up. That's unstable. What I'm doing is I'm coming from this position, I'm sorry, I'm holding a little bit high, and I'm then rotating up, hey there, with my elbow to the point where the gun is in line here, okay? If I'm doing it right, I'm still able to see around. So that's why C.A.R works with the gun canted, whereas the gangster position does not, regardless of what kind of fancy dance moves you try to put with it while you're doing it. That's Zombie Tactics for today, putting Mr. Springfield XD40 away to bed. We'll see you next time.